Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hello, hello. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to let everybody sort of roll in, get situated, and then we're going to get started. Perfect. Hello, everybody. Welcome. All right, John, do you want to bring down our music? We can kick things off here. Perfect. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. My name is Shannon DeMarco. I am a marketing manager here at Cran, and I've been working with John really closely on this new series from us. It's called the Behind the Curtain series, where we're taking a look not just at the AI that Cran has invested in our own tool, but actually the different AI tools that we are using as a team. We recently had a webinar where we talked through AI agents, and the two speakers on that fireside chat really spoke about a bunch of different tools that they've been using. And the number one thing we heard afterwards were just show us the tools. We want to see it all. We want to see how people are actually using these things. So we're peeling back the curtain here and making sure you get a chance to see all of these really cool tools. And John White, our CPO, is going to run through a variety of the different tools available from OpenAI and how he currently uses them. A couple little housekeeping things. So if you registered, you are going to get the recording. So if you want to check back in and see how he's using it, you'll have that available. And then this is a 30-minute session. So we're going to move really fast. We're going to do our very best to get all your questions answered. So don't hesitate to send those in the Q&A. But if you don't get it answered, you'll just have to come to the next episode of this new series. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, John.
Hi, thank you very much, Shannon. Yeah, we got a lot to cover, so I'm just going to jump right in. Basically, how today is going to work, this is the first time we've done this, but we're going to do a bunch of live demos with AI. This is going to be pretty informal. We're going to be taking Q&A. We might even drop a few Q&A questions in while we're waiting for some prompts to load. I'm not going to use a ton of slides at all. We're just going to demo stuff live. Just a couple of caveats on that. As you might know, generative AI is probabilistic, not deterministic. So that means some demos might not work as planned. We're just going to roll with it anyway. In general, I'm going to show you my actual work. For the most part, apart from a couple of things where we just, there's some data that we shouldn't be sharing, I'm going to show you like actual prompts that we're using here. And today we are for this first one, and we hope that you will get enough value out of this that this is going to be a series, and we can go through a few different types of AI tools. So if you like it, please let us know. The first one, we are going to focus solely on OpenAI and OpenAI's tool stack. We are not going to do a ton of prompt engineering today. We're not going to go through like general AI best practices, apart from a few examples. I will say if there's one kind of technique that I hope you take from today, it is that great generative AI outputs come from having great context. So almost all the examples I show you, I'm going to show you how you can make your AI, make OpenAI smarter, make ChatGPT smarter by giving it context about your company or your business, okay? And then we're just going to go really hands-on and actually going to like kind of show you the prompts and how you can tune the system to work. We're going to go through OpenAI's tool stack. I made this up. This is probably not officially sanctioned marketing roadmap slide, but this is generally kind of the product portfolio of OpenAI. We're going to focus mostly on these. We're going to do the general models, the reasoning models. We're going to talk a little bit about image generation, and then I'm going to show you some videos of Operator, because I know not everybody's had a chance to play with Operator because it's still part of their premium package. Okay, ready to go? Ready, Shannon? Let's do it. All right. Part one, we're going to start off with talking about ChatGPT, custom GPTs. Okay, and if there's one thing that you take from this 30 minutes, I want to show you how if you're not doing this already, and many of you are doing this already, I want to show you how you can create a company-specific content generation GPT. All right. So I'm going to do a before and after here. I'm going to just use regular Chat GPT, okay, that doesn't know anything about Crayon, doesn't know anything about me. This is just, the regular version. And I'm just going to ask it to write me a blog post, okay? And I'm going to ask it to write me a blog post about some of the challenges that product marketers have balancing competitive enablement alongside other parts of their job. I'm sure that's something that's near and dear to many of our audience's heart. Okay, here we go. And it's going to start writing. Now, what I think we're going to see in this content is look, don't get me wrong, like this 2 years ago, this would have been absolutely mind-blowing. But I think what you're going to see is this is quite generic content, okay? And I think Shannon writes a lot of our blog content. I don't know, Shannon, does this look like something that you would publish on the blog as is?
No,
Just going to
I
convert?
gotta be more specific. You know that.
Yeah, so it's a bit too generic, okay? Still maybe a good jumping off point for some content, but I think it's very specific, it's very buzzwordy. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to try that same prompt, but we're going to use a custom GPT. Now, if you're not familiar with what custom GPTs are, they are, and I'm going to show you how to create one in a second, but they are basically kind of versions of ChatGPT that you can, I'm going to use the word train, maybe train's the wrong word, but you can give data to make them smarter about your company. All right. So we have one we use. Actually, Shannon and I created it called Crayon 9000. I don't know why it's called Crayon 9000. I guess that's some kind of in joke from before when I started here. But Crayon 9000 is a marketing copywriting genius for Crayon. Okay. And I'm going to give it that same prompt. And I think what we're going to see here, firstly, it searches its knowledge. I'll show you how to give it knowledge in a second. What we're going to see here is it's going to write much more specific content based on the instructions that we have given it. So immediately you can see that the kind of the content and the headlines it's using are much more kind of pithy, much more high impact, much more conversion focused. As this is writing out, yeah, so here we go. It's starting to use some of our kind of narrative and messaging. This is stuff that we put in our sales slides. It's using Crayon terminology. Data overload. This is another term we use a lot when we talk to customers in our marketing. It's using examples from our own data. So look, I'm not saying that you could copy and paste this and stick this straight on the blog, but this is much, much more specific to our company. I think this would convert much better. And honestly, it's a more interesting read. Okay, and that's because instead of using generic ChatGPT, I've used this Crayon 9000 custom GPT. Okay. So let's talk about what a custom GPT is. I can create custom GPTs by going to this Explore GPT section and hitting create. But I'm going to go into my Crayon 9000 GPT and I'm going to show you how we created this, okay? So there's a couple of pieces to this. One is you get to give it custom instructions. So the custom instructions that we gave Crayon 9000, we told it it's a world-leading marketing, copywriting, brand expert. You work for Crayon, blah, blah, blah. This is what your content should do. You should, we gave it some additional instructions, but then we've also told it you should heavily reference your knowledge to generate content. And our knowledge, by the way, and you can just upload these files into your GPTs. These are just things about Crayon. Okay, so some of these are really high performing content that we've already written. We put in here our Forrester response, which is like literally PDF'd our Forrester response. So it kind of knows all about our product and what our product does. We've got a sales deck in here. We've got some LinkedIn content that performed really well. We've got our internal narrative. So we just basically took 7 files that we think really represented kind of Crayon's voice, brand, tone, roadmap, etc. And we just uploaded them. And just with that, and this probably took honestly 10 minutes to make, and Shannon and I update it every now and then. Just with that, the quality of the content it produces is mind-bogglingly different. So again, even if you sign off this webinar now and you don't take anything else away from this, everybody should be doing this. Everybody should have their own version of Crayon 9000 for their marketing team to help them write content. Now, you can use GPTs for many, many more use cases than just this. I'm going to show you one other example. I have created a a GPT that helps me scale myself. And again, this is something you should all be thinking about doing. Like we've all got lots of kind of repetitive tasks that we take on in our day to day. One of the things that I do in my role a lot, probably many of you do too, is give feedback on things. People will send you something and say, hey, can you give me some feedback on this document? Can you give me some feedback on this design, this product feature, this PRD, etc. So what I did, I created a John 9000. Okay. And the way I created this GPT, very similar. I just kind of made a few PDFs of me giving feedback about things that people had sent me. Okay, so I don't think I can actually click on these and show you, but basically each one of these has a document that I've given feedback on or a thing I've given feedback on, and then the feedback that I gave, and some of them have a few. So I'm basically teaching the AI the kinds of things that I like to give feedback about. Okay, and then what I've said is I've told it it's a product design and UX expert. And your job is to help me give feedback on things. And then there's a few other instructions in there as well. And I ask it to use my voice. I ask it to use the structure that I like when I give feedback on documents. And basically, let's see how this works. So I'm going to go back in here. And in this case, I'm actually going to ask it to give some feedback. Oh, that's not good. Let me see if I can resolve that. Okay, phew. That would have been awkward if OpenAI would have had a bug. All right, so here is a blog post. So I'm going to say, please give some feedback on this blog post. And again, this thing is smart. It knows about Crayon. It knows about it kind of knows about the things that we do and the things that we work on. So here we go. It's literally impersonating me. Now, so what I would do with this is I wouldn't copy this verbatim. I would maybe take the pieces of this that I like, and then I would obviously go and read the doc myself and give feedback on it as well. But let's say to give good, deep feedback on a document or a blog post like that takes 30, 45 minutes. I think I've got that down to about 10 minutes now. So anyway, there is just another example of a way that you can use GPTs to kind of scale yourself and scale your team. Cool. We're about to jump into another section. I just want to check with Shannon. Have we got any questions? We're going to try and do some questions in real time. Any questions on this so far, Shannon?
Yeah, we have two similar questions asking about whether or not when you're uploading docs to custom GPTs like this, if you should presume that it's then ingested into the larger OpenAI knowledge base,
Yep.
aka is this type of intelligence at risk to be accessed by anyone?
So no. So these are sandboxed, at least in the enterprise version of ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure in the consumer version as well. But you're safe to upload stuff. It's not going to make it into the main models. Yeah, that's a good question.
Awesome.
Another one there, did you say, or shall I move on?
Both were on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I can't believe we're 15 minutes in already. I got to start talking faster. I did just want to call out. I was a bit confused when ChatGPT launched projects. So you have this thing called projects as well that are very similar to GPTs. And if you're wondering what the difference is between these two, they're very similar. Okay, and you can kind of Google some of the differences, but I think the benefits to using a project. I use projects for more like point in time things, like this is a project I put together to help us with quarterly planning. The benefits of projects, they kind of act like folders, so they can organize your kind of chat threads within the same topic. But what it also does is it kind of remembers the chats that you've made on that topic. So it kind of, helps each thread you create in a project get smarter and smarter about the project. I actually prefer GPTs. The downside to GPTs is you can't organize threads inside them, but that doesn't bother me that much. The benefits of GPTs are that you can share them. So actually, everyone at Crayon has access to Crayon 9000. And anytime Shannon or I update it, everyone gets those updates. If I wanted to, I could like flex hard and share John 9000 with the whole company and be like, if you want feedback from me, talk to my AI. I haven't done that, but I could do if I wanted to. So they are shared. And there is another benefit of GPTs as well, which I haven't got a demo for, but you can actually connect them to APIs. So you can use this action thing here. So we actually have some internal ones that are connected to APIs. So I don't know. For me, it's mostly I mostly use GPTs, but projects do a very similar thing. If you're doing things on your own, I think you'll probably find them very similar. All right. Now we're going to go into more advanced uses of chat. Okay, and we're going to look at a few techniques, and we're going to talk a little bit about reasoning models. That was a pretty simple example. We're going to go into more advanced example now, and we're going to try and get ChatGPT to help us with some data analysis. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I am going to ask ChatGPT to take some raw data that's in a spreadsheet format and try and find some insights out of it. So the data I'm going to give it, and if you're familiar with Crayon, you might be familiar that every year we do a state of compete survey where we survey hundreds of people who have, competitive enablement as part of their job, and we ask them a bunch of questions and we trend it over time and we publish a report. Okay, it's the largest kind of competitive intelligence survey out there. So we have a lot of data to work with. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me some interesting insights from data that I can use to generate a report. Okay, so pretty broad prompt. And then I am going to give it the source data. Okay. And I'm going to hit go once it's uploaded that file. Now, what's going to happen here, this is going to take a little while, okay, because it needs to analyze this data. So it's going to analyze this behind the scenes. And I'm actually not going to wait for it to finish. I'm going to go down to one that I already created. And what you're going to see here is that it's kind of analyzed this data, it's kind of pulled it into a mini spreadsheet, and then it's come up with, some pretty decent insights. Okay. And again, this is something that if you said like a computer could do this 2 years ago, you'd have your mind blown how good this is. But actually, I think if we dug into these insights, they're a little bit vanilla. And I think there's actually some more high quality content inside that raw data that we can get at. So we're going to go a bit advanced here, and we're going to do a few things differently. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do, we're gonna add that file again. Okay, so we're going to add the raw data. But we're also going to give it more context. I told you that context would be a common theme during this webinar. And the context we're going to give it is actually, before this, I downloaded two things. I downloaded last year's report. Okay, so I'm going to add last year's report. And then also, we haven't published this year's yet, I don't think, right? But I've got the draft, so I'm going to give it this year's draft as well. Okay, so again, we're making the AI smarter by giving it contextual information that's going to help it answer its questions. So this is what last year's looks like. Okay, many of you probably read this already. And then we've got a draft of this year's. Looks like this. Hasn't gone through design yet, etc. So the first thing I did was I added more context. So that's going to make the answer better. The second thing I did was I spent actually about 10 minutes writing a much more in-depth prompt. I think probably we could just include this prompt in the follow-up if that's useful to people. Okay, so I did some pretty, medium level prompt engineering on this. I'm just going to talk you through this prompt a little bit. So I used kind of the persona and goal model. So I told it, it's a competitive intelligence data analysis expert. Your job is to find me unique insights in data I can add to a report. I gave it some background. So I said every year we publish these reports. So I told it that, I'm going to give you last year's report, and I want you to help me write this year's. Okay. And I also gave it a very specific task, which is what I said that what I want it to do is find me insights that are not in the current draft of this year's report. Okay, so find me cool stuff that, we haven't already found in this data. So it's got, it's a reasonably in-depth challenge. So I made it really clear that every insight you suggest should be something that does not already exist in the 2024 report or the 2025 draft. It must be novel, and it must be something that's interesting and novel to our audience. Okay? And then the last thing I did was I used a prompt technique called chain of thought. And what chain of thought does is what chain of thought is you kind of tell the AI how you want it to process the data. Okay, so what I said I want it to do, firstly, read the 2024 report, like catalog the insights in it, read the 2025 report, catalog the insights in it, then analyze the data, and then try and find new insights not included in either report. Now, behind the scenes, the AI doesn't actually follow this, but if you've done any prompt engineering, you might know that just by writing this down into the prompt, it can often result in higher quality data. Okay, and I asked it to give me some outputs. Okay, so that's the two things I did so far. I've given it context, I've given it a chain of thought prompt with a lot more data, and then the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to a reasoning model. So instead of using what we're using, instead of using GPT-4o, which is a chat model, it's now going to use a reasoning model, right? And I'm going to hit go. And this is going to take a pretty long time. Actually, I don't even know if this will complete in the next 10 minutes. But what's going to happen behind the scenes is it's going to start thinking more deeply about the data. And while that's running, I'm just going to explain, in case you're wondering, what the difference is between a reasoning model and a chat model. So the TLDR is a chat model is really good at writing, a reasoning model is really good at problem solving. Okay, the downside of a chat model, and I'm sure many of you have seen this, is that they do have a tendency to try and please. So they'll try and answer the question with answers that look pretty plausible, but often they'll hallucinate because what they're essentially doing, they're just trying to kind of predict what a good answer would be to the question that you've asked. Now, what a reasoning model does is it has a bunch of processing that happens before it actually uses the LLM. And it has a bunch of different tools and techniques that it's got, like contextual memory or structured memory, API access, and it has the ability to fire off multiple prompts to solve a problem. So sometimes, I don't know when and why it decides to show you this or not, sometimes you'll get this like thinking icon here and you can click that and it'll actually tell you what it's doing. In fact, sometimes if you just kind of like refresh, there we go. So here's the thinking thing. So here we go. We're actually like seeing inside what the LLM is doing now. Okay, it's decided to randomly write some code here. But it will kind of, what if we sat here and we waited for this entire thing to finish, it would tell us, here we go, step by step, all the different steps it's taking to try and solve this problem. Okay, so much, much, much more in depth, much slower. That's one of the trade-offs of using a reasoning model. And I think this is probably not going to complete in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you one I ran yesterday with exactly the same data set. Okay. And you will see that the output is much more specific. And also these are genuinely things that are not in our current report. I don't know. In fact, maybe Sheila, Shannon, you might look at one of these and be like, that's a really good takeaway. We might add it to the report. I asked it to give me, very specific data sources, give me data visualization ideas. And I from scanning these yesterday, these looked really like this one here was really interesting. So if you're a CI pro and you're recording your calls and you're listening to your calls as a source of competitive intel, then you are much more likely to be winning more deals. And then it's actually done a chi-squared test and statistical analysis on this to actually like figure out like how much more likely. So there's some really powerful data here. So I hope what you're seeing from this is the benefit of going a little bit more in depth, adding context, using a reasoning model, and also going a little bit deeper with prompt engineering. The last thing I did here as well, which is kind of a cool little trick, is I used Canvas. So I asked it, can you please canvas me a data visualization for number 3? If you haven't used Canvas, what Canvas is, it's kind of a little tool that can write code. And it wrote some code for me here. And then if I blow this up and hit preview, it's even made me a chart. Pretty cool. Okay. There is no way we're going to get through all 5 because we've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to have to pick and choose where we go from here. let's think about this. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to preview Operator because I know a lot of you, a lot of customers, a lot of people we've talked to have questions about how Operator works. And then we'll see where we're at, see if we have a couple more minutes to jump into one other use case. Otherwise, tune in for the next one and we'll catch up on what we didn't get to. Okay, so Operator made quite a bit of buzz when it launched a few months ago. Basically, what Operator is it's an AI that can also control a browser. So OpenAI were marketing it as a kind of an agentic AI. And if you think about it, that's pretty powerful because think how much work we as humans do in the browser. And think if you had an AI that controlled the browser or an AI that could, write code and execute code on a server, which some of the other kind of operator type products do, you can imagine some of the power of that. But I think there's also some downsides to operate. So I'm going to show you here a couple of use cases. And then, you can hopefully that will kind of give you a little bit more of a picture if you haven't used Operator before on the pros and cons of using the tool. Okay, so the first use case should see a different browser screen now. I think actually, by the way, should mention as well, Operator is not available on enterprise accounts yet, so you have to use a consumer account to sign up for it, which means also you probably can't put customer data through it. Like we can't put customer data through it, so it's a bit limited for enterprise use cases. Anyway, so the first thing here I did was I asked it to find me a flight, and I made it pretty complex. I said, can you get me from Seattle to London via Madrid? I've got meetings at these times. I need to be in Madrid by this time, blah, 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 blah. And you can actually watch it. Let me refresh this page. You can actually watch it run. So I did this already. I've already teed this up. It's pretty slow. But what it does, it records a video of what it did as well. So here's what it did. It went to Bing. It found some flights. It looked at a few different flights. Kind of cool, just watching like the browser be driven by an AI. Picked some dates, blah, 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 blah. And the outcome of it was, it solved the problem. It found me some pretty cheap flights, actually. $700 from Seattle to Madrid. Sounds pretty good. It got the times right, etc. So it did a pretty good job. Then I gave it a pretty basic, I would say, kind of work task. I said, I want you to help me set up a meeting. So Shannon, Sheila, Jonah, and I, we need to have a debrief meeting for a webinar that we've just run. Can you help me find a time slot? Didn't do quite as well. So let's walk through what it did. First, it logged in. I had to give it my password. And then it pulled up my calendar. It clicked around my calendar a bit. Started looking at a few appointments. And then it picked a time. And then it changed the time, I think, because it realized maybe that time was outside of working hours. Then it found another time. Still going pretty well at this point. Doesn't know that all the people are in different time zones, but we'll give it a pass on that. Added the right people. Then it got a bit stuck. Then it went off and tried to change some of my settings. So it tried to change my name in Gmail. I don't know why it did that. And then it realized that some people had conflicts on this meeting. So the way it solved that was it removed me from the meeting. So anyway, while I think
Also, how I schedule meetings with you too, so it's perfect.
I know, exactly. So anyway, I think look, don't get me wrong. I think this technology has incredible potential. I think it's working really well in consumer land right now. I don't think it's there for B2B. Yeah. I can't believe we've run out of time already. Can you believe that? I guess we definitely have to do a second one now. All right, let me just wrap up real quick. So there's a few other use cases I wanted to show you, but hopefully we've walked through some stuff that is useful for you today. I just have to say before we jump into the Q&A, we'll keep the Q&A going past for a few more minutes. But if you're not familiar with Crayon, we are a competitive enablement platform. We help your sales team win competitive head-to-head deals that you're probably losing today. We do this by helping you automate compete. Basically, we collect a bunch of competitive insight from channels inside and outside your company. We use AI to process those insights into usable content for sales. And then we help you create that content and push it out to your reps so that when they're on that call or they're in that meeting and they need that talk track or that information about a competitor, they have it at their fingertips. We have lots of companies who are using Crayon to bring in more revenue. And I think we're actually going to send out a demo of how we're using some of these AI tools inside our own product to help our customers win more deals. But with that, thank you very much. We'll stick around for a bit to do Q&A. Obviously, we'll send out the recording, including the bit that's gone past 9:30 or 12:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Please, if you have some extra time to spare and you have more questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. John, there was one question that I put a pin in.
Yeah,
So one person posted that their company has blocked ChatGPT due to security issues, and they're only allowed to use Microsoft Copilot.
yeah.
The question is if you have any experience as to if Copilot's functionality is similar to like creating those custom GPTs, uploading content, even doing some of the deep
Yeah.
research that you showed.
I unfortunately I'm not familiar with Microsoft Copilot. We're on the Google stack here. I would imagine you could do most of the same things with Microsoft Copilot. I do know it has a way of connecting to APIs because some of our customers are doing that. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be the right person to tell you how to do that. Here's what I would do. I would go to ChatGPT, maybe in your consumer account or on the free account, and I would use deep research and I would ask it that question, how does Microsoft Copilot compare to custom GPTs? And I bet it will give you a good answer on how to solve that problem.
I lean on that a lot of using GPTs to help me use
You,
other AI tools quite often.
using AI to learn about AI. Yep, very meta.
AI inception, it's the just the way it goes. There's one thing earlier you mentioned the like chain of thought
Yeah.
in your prompt. Are there any other sort of like approaches like that that you try to incorporate? You know, context number one,
Yeah.
obviously, but I like just keeping that in mind of like, okay, I could do process, chain of thought, any other.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. I mean, there's an entire like body of knowledge on like prompt techniques that trying to find a website I've used in the past behind the scenes that I was going to share. I'll send it out in the follow up. But some other things that are useful, including examples, is often a way to get good results back, especially if you're doing like testing. If you're building products with prompts, then there's a bunch of other stuff that you can do. I mean, the classic approach is something that's, a bit overnamed. It's called retrieval augmented generation, but it basically means just like putting additional context into the actual prompt itself. And then if you're writing if you're building products using LLMs, then something we use extensively at Crayon is a technique called prompt chaining, where you break down a problem. Maybe a problem has like 5 or 6 steps. You have a prompt at each step, and you pass the result of one prompt into the next prompt. You kind of need to be able to write code to do that at scale. It's kind of finicky to do manually, but that's probably the most powerful way of getting the LLMs to do what you want them to do.
Fantastic. That's helpful. We had another person who said that that was their question was like some resources on prompt engineering. So maybe in our next episode of this series, we can touch on that a little bit more as well, especially if we're going to show some other tools there.
Cool.
Awesome. Let's see if anybody has any other questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. Um, John, were there any other I know you moved quickly through some of
Yeah.
those examples, but were there any other key highlights that you wanted to make sure we showed?
Yeah, the things we didn't get to that we can do next time. What I was going to show was how you can use DALL-E to create marketing images. Not perfect at it, but that DALL-E got a huge update about a month or two ago, which means it works a lot better than it did. And then I was also going to talk about. This is really cool, actually. We can do a whole session on design prototyping, but I was going to show you how you can use OpenAI Canvas to put together design prototypes for website pages or for products. So maybe we can just bump those out into the next one of these.
Yeah, I would love that. You know me, I'm always like trying to make product screenshots and those stylized.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. We don't have any other questions. I think everyone's super excited for our next session on this. We will be following up with the recording as well as some resources and some additional information on some of the specific questions that got asked a few times. And that product tour that John mentioned, really focusing in on the AI offerings that Cran has. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Otherwise, thank you, John, so much. The great presentation, and thank you everybody for joining today.
Should I play us out with some AI music?
Yes, absolutely.
There we go.
Oh wait. Oh, did we have one more? No.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.